Real estate, construction, and the built environment play a pivotal role in shaping communities, driving economic growth, and supporting the way British citizens live and work. As demands on these critical aspects of society grow, through climate commitments, housing shortages, and changing market forces, property professionals are navigating complex challenges. Ryden is one of the UK's most experienced commercial property consultancies, known for its deep market insight and long-standing client partnerships. In this programme, we explore how Ryden is helping to lead the sector forward through innovation, collaboration, and a clear vision for sustainable growth.
The history of Ryden, they are a commercial property consultancy. They're headquartered in Edinburgh and they were established in 1959. The business covers all property services. And earlier this year we had an exciting change to the business with a strategic investment from Lambert Smith Hampton. And that will hugely support business growth and investment, and it'll be great for all the staff in the business as well. So it's an exciting time for the organisation. Ryden is a full-service real estate construction consultancy. We deal with all property matters effectively, both in the private and the public sector. The bandwidth of our services go from high-end strategic consultancy, really all the way through to investment agency, project management, and really the full gambit of consultancy services. We tend to cover all sectors, and we're now involved in some of the new sectors in the market and emerging sectors like life sciences, renewables and data centres.
Scotland is facing a housing crisis, driven by a critical mismatch between supply and demand. As demand grows, land prices continue to rise, inflating costs for buyers and renters alike.
The housing market in Scotland probably suffers from the same issues as the UK, but possibly they're exacerbated. There's a chronic imbalance between supply and demand. The reason supply is not coming through is various issues. The planning system is still slow. It will take you up to 12 months to get a planning consent to build volume house building. So as a result of this undersupply, what we're seeing is demand basically driving land prices. And if land prices go up, then that just gets fed on to the next person in the chain, which is the householder. So it's making the situation worse. Scottish Government last year declared a national housing emergency. That was followed shortly thereafter when over half of the 32 councils in Scotland did the same. So we are in the middle of a genuine housing crisis.
Real progress depends on strong, effective partnerships between the government and the sector. Many urban regeneration schemes are simply not viable without public investment or grant funding.
Well, I think at present, I believe that the political direction and public policy, are really acutely shaping trends in the market and sectors, probably more so than has been the case for many years. I think it's tricky for the government and their initiatives in planning policy, industrial strategy and infrastructure, are really exactly what the UK requires at the moment for the growth of the property and construction sector.
Yeah, the government's got a very important role to play in terms of assisting the property sector. One of the big issues is planning. I think everybody will have seen news articles, read news articles about the planning system taking too long. The government has stated that they want to simplify the process, which is very welcome. The government can also help, particularly when it comes to regeneration projects, in terms of grant funding availability. Some projects in some towns and some locations just don't work from a private sector perspective. The viability doesn't work, the costs are greater than the end value. But the government previously has, and beginning to look as though increasingly they will invest in town centres in particular. And then I think the final point, the way that the government can help through legislation are things like planning gain. So everybody recognises that new houses, new facilities put strains on local services, whether that be doctors' surgeries, schools, etc., and they've got to play their part. But one of the problems is that sometimes the planning gain requirement is such that it just stops the development in its tracks. So I think they've got to find ways of working with the private sector to ensure developments can come forward, and that these new developments do shoulder the burden, but they do it in a way that makes sense.
With the help of innovative building methods, sustainable design is now at the forefront. UK developers are responding quickly by cutting carbon in some of the most challenging building types.
Innovation, I think, tends to be driven by probably the necessity of new regulatory standards and how the property market really must respond to that. I think in recent years, new sustainable design leading to carbon reduction has really positively improved building design, particularly in buildings which are naturally a large emitter of carbon. The industry and designers in particular, I think they should be recognised and commended for the innovation which they've really embraced. We've got excellent designers in the UK. They're constantly having to invest, innovate and embrace change. The sectors with the greatest demand, well, I think the living sector has seen a huge increase in development in recent years, particularly in build to rent and purpose-built student accommodation. But I think this probably masks the real position in the housing market. The Scottish Government announced a housing crisis 12 months ago, and a year on from that, the latest data shows that all sector new build starts are down around 11% between financial year 23-24 to 24-25. Private sector new builds, they're down too. Social sector new build starts, they're down, and the affordable housing supply, it's down over 20%. So there's hundreds of thousands of people on the social housing waiting list. And I think, as everyone knows, this is at a time where the private rented sector is experiencing unprecedented demand. It's a time where house prices are increasing, particularly as the number of new builds are declining. So, really hard work is required, and the Scottish Government know this, but more work is really required to improve this. But there are other sectors where there continues to be positive demand. The industrial and logistics sector, again driven by final mile delivery demand and post-COVID, it continues to drive strong requirements. But despite this, the cost of new industrial and logistics development, it continues to dissuade the majority of developers to build new space. So as a result, poor quality space with poor environmental credentials continues to have strong demand. The UK infrastructure strategy was announced earlier this month. It's a 10-year plan, and I think that I should really be hugely welcomed by the industry. And I think we've lacked long-term planning for many years in this country. So it will absolutely drive growth in the housing sector, also improve planning, and I think there's a real aim to drive delivery across infrastructure projects. So hopefully it's an exciting time. Together with that, the National Infrastructure and Construction Pipeline is planned for a spend of incredibly over 700 billion. So the improvement in the economy, the construction sector over years to come is hopefully going to be felt right across the UK.
Scotland is embracing the future with major new initiatives in energy and technology. Aberdeen continues to lead globally in oil, gas and subsea technology, Meanwhile, life sciences are expanding rapidly, supported by cutting-edge research.
The impact in job creation should be hugely positive, really. But with one focus on Scotland for a moment, the continuing growth of the renewable sector and developing initiatives such as the Inverness and Cromarty Firth Freeport is hugely exciting. This has enormous potential for Scotland. The investment is already happening. The Freeport, for example, provides access to Europe's largest energy market. So there's some fantastic, exciting initiatives coming through. There was one other fabulous initiative recently, earlier this month, which is the £200 million investment in the Acorn project, which is near Peterhead. And again, this fantastic growth and employment will be created as a consequence. But I think it's also important to recognise that key industries remain important in Scotland. The oil and gas sector remains very important to Scotland, and Aberdeen in the northeast, as a global hub for subsea engineering remains hugely important. And perhaps finally, there are some really exciting other sectors which are developing in Scotland. Life science is one of them. There's incredible support from Scottish Enterprise, and there's some real world-class chemistry and research and developing happening right now in Scotland.
Real estate supports a substantial proportion of the UK's GDP and provides more than 3 million jobs. Developers increasingly fund local infrastructure, from schools and surgeries to trams and transit.
The real estate sector and construction industry contributes over 15% of GDP. There's over 3 million people employed directly and indirectly in the sector. But I think the other way that the real estate industry influences UK economic objectives is that it's important in terms of levelling up, moving people around the country, moving government departments, going back again to the net zero. Property has always been a polluter and caused issues. However, now the converse is true. It is adding costs on to the industry and construction costs, but we're recognising that people are prepared to pay for that. The other thing that people quite often forget about the real estate sector is that it's one of the bigger providers of both national and local infrastructure. So if a new school gets built, that's probably as a result of contributions from housing developers. If a new tram gets built, that's normally as a result of landowners and developers who are developing adjacent to the tram line. So yes, it plays a huge part in terms of the UK economy.
The future of the sector depends on improved economic stability, clear policy, and the industry's ability to adapt to change. Despite global uncertainty, the UK continues to attract international investment and foster long-term growth. Clean energy, advanced manufacturing, and sustainable development are becoming central pillars of the industry, and how the UK regenerates and grows its cities and regions. Delivering on this potential will require continued collaboration, innovation, and a commitment to balancing economic, environmental, and social outcomes.